Back to the Biden laptop. Over the years, the Bidens have reportedly been getting paid up to $50,000 per month to serve on a Ukrainian gas company's board, received $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife, and have gone on a $100,000 spending spree courtesy of a Chinese-linked credit card. So I want to know, where's all this money going? I want to know if this money is still flowing. And nobody better to talk about it than Miranda Devine, New York Post columnist, Fox News contributor, and author of Laptop from Hell. All right, Miranda, you're just on this. You own this. This is big stuff. Couple things. I was reading your column yesterday, the day before, very carefully. You're looking for the money, too, as far as I can tell. And let me just ask you, this HRH, if I have this right, this is a Chinese investment company, HAS, maybe that's it. Did Hunter Biden divest or not? They had a 10% share. Part of this was a Chinese investment fund linked to the China bank, the central bank, if I'm not mistaken. Is he out of that, Miranda, or not? Or is he still getting paid?
Well, that's a really good question, Larry, and you're right to follow the money. It's always the most basic rule of journalism, follow the money. That's where you find the gold, that's where the dirt is. And look, BHR is the name of that investment fund that Hunter Biden had a 10% share in. And his lawyer told the New York Times in November that he divested himself of it. And it was something that we'd expected since the beginning of the Biden presidency, because Jen Psaki told us that he was in the process of unloading that shareholding. But as of the last time I looked, which was just on the weekend, he still his firm, Skenatalys, is still listed on the Chinese websites as being a 10% owner of BHR, which, as you say, is owned by the China Bank of China. And his company, Skenatalys, he is still listed as the sole governor, owner, director on the US shareholdings. So there is some sort of question mark over that. It's listed as being revoked, but apparently that is just, I think the Washington Examiner found out that that's just because they hadn't paid a $400 bill. So I don't know how they can say, I mean, maybe these websites are 4 months out of date, but it certainly looks as if he still has that 10% shareholding, which could be worth a lot of money. We don't know exactly what it's worth, but we do know that BHR in 2019 had $2.5 billion worth of funds under management. And we also know that in discussions with his business partners, that was on his abandoned laptop, they discussed, one part of that being worth $100 million that they would share, their share. So I don't know what it's worth. It's been estimated that it could be, worth $30 million. Who knows? We do know, for instance, that one of the investments was in Face++, which is a facial recognition company that the Chinese have used to spy on the Uyghurs, for instance. Now, they had a $30 million stake in that, BHR did, and that doubled in the period that they owned it. So doubled in value. So there's a lot of money in there. It's probably they had some wins and losses, like all of this. But Hunter is going to have to harvest it at some time, and he'll make a lot of money there.
Well, the thing is, Miranda, I'm really interested. How much money did Hunter Biden get in these ventures? Now, some of this is with the wife of the Russian mayor. She was a corrupt oligarch. Then, of course, there's the Ukrainian Burisma, the oil company. And now there's the China stuff, which may be ongoing, as your reporting suggests. I'd love to know how much they made in total. I mean, remember Bobulinski saying we're going to save 10% for the big guy? I'd like to know what Joe Biden got from these investments that his son made. I would also like to know, in that 10% rule, whether they are still receiving funds from any of these investments, or has it been completely ended and cut off? You know, while President Biden negotiates with President for Life Xi in China, I'd like to know, has this stuff ended? Remember the other quote that popped up that I guess Hunter said to his girlfriend or something, oh, I always have to give Dad half of what I got or half of my sales. I mean, I'd just like to know what kind of dollar figures. What did they make? When did they make it? And has it all ended, or is that money still flowing? We don't really know that yet.
Well, we know a little bit. We know that Hunter got $4 million from Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company. We know that a $5 million payment went into his bank accounts from the CEFC, a Chinese energy company. That was in 2017, which is not just an energy company. It is the capitalist arm of President Xi's imperialist Belt and Road Initiative. You know the import of that. And we also know there was $6 million in two $3 million wires, which was uncovered by Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson's inquiry through Treasury Department suspicious activity reports. Two $3 million wires went to one of Hunter's business partners, Rob Walker, who's currently in Arkansas. Now, did that money remain with Rob Walker? Or we know there is some of that money. I've traced up to $1 million that flowed from Rob Walker's accounts into Hunter Biden's accounts. The rest of it, did Rob Walker keep that? Did he pay tax on it? Or did it go to Hunter Biden? Did he pay tax on it? And we also know that Joe Biden himself was benefiting financially from some of this money, whether it be commingled finances or Hunter paying some of his household bills.
Right. All right. Well, look, time is always scarce. We hope you'll come back soon to pursue this. Listen, I'm reading every word you write, but I'm just saying, let's follow the money, because I think the big guy, quote unquote, who has to be president, I think there's going to be more there than we know. That's what I think. But if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong, and you'll be the first to tell me. Miranda Devine, terrific stuff.
Look,
we appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.